here we are, middle of 2024. All of us are at a point where we need a big break. We're heading into the 4th of July, and some significant things have been on my mind and my heart. And what I'm realizing is that a large majority of the clients that we work with, the executives we work with, have worked with for years and have just recently met. The common theme is overwhelmingly burnout. I don't know if that's you or not, but there's about an 86% chance that it is. That's the percentage of people who are burnout that we work with right now. That's about the percentage that we're seeing of executives and managers and team leaders of design and construction companies that are absolutely burnout. Maybe it's you, maybe it's not you. But if it is you, here's what I would say. You're not alone. Number one, burnout's okay. It's almost expected. What we can't afford is for you to burn up. People need you in all areas of your life, at home, at work, on job sites. Your clients need you. People in the community need you. Here's what I'm asking. Don't burn up. Don't give up. What I'm hoping that you take away from today is filling your courage bucket by listening to Tom, a man who has probably been in the similar shoes that you're sitting in right now, who was restless, got really burnt out, went on some hard times in life, but had the courage to dig into what he was called to do as a greater purpose and to create a vision for his life that was worth the investment. And he had the courage to create some change. I'm hoping by hearing his story while you're hanging out on the lake or hanging out by the pool, or maybe you're drinking a warm cup of coffee overlooking some beautiful area, I hope you can capture a little bit of a glimpse of what his life was like and the courage that it took for him to make some changes that could help you spur some changes in your life. If you or someone on your team truly wants to better engage people and maximize their potential and get the most out of their team, I'm borderline begging you to get them to a boot camp. At these boot camps, I guarantee you 3 things are going to happen. Number one, you and the people that you bring from your team are going to come together as a team and gel more so than any other time. Number 2, you're going to help them make life decisions about who they are, what they're great at, and what they could become at home and on your team and at work. And then thirdly, you're going to be able to see into what you could become as a leader, what it means to lead in 2024, and how to maximize the potential of the people around you, both at home and at work. Take the next steps. Go to our website, PioneerQ.com. We've got these all across the country, and sign up. Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm DeWayne Abels, founder and president of PioneerQ. I'm so glad you're joining us for an episode today I'm really excited about. We do a lot of these. You've probably seen a ton of them. We had a lot of feedback on the mindset shift, but I'm telling you, the situation that our industry's in going into the 4th of July weekend is a little overwhelming. So many people are burnt out. And I'm hoping that from listening to Tom's story, you pick something up that helps you better understand how to lead yourself and how to forge a path through your current situation to better lead your team so that you and all of them stay focused on living out your purpose and intentionally impacting your world so that you're doing something more than just creating paychecks and with the expertise that you've been given. Joining us all the way from Munich, Germany is Tom Houts. Tom, thanks for joining us. I cannot wait for our leaders to hear your journey and what you chose to do with your life. Thanks for joining us, man.
DeWayne, thanks so much. Dankeschön, guten Abend. I won't make you do it in German. I need a break. It's been a long day speaking this darn language, but it's great to be here. So thanks so much.
I know. Yeah, what you said was, I totally agree with what you just said. That's what I was thinking, whatever that meant.
Okay.
Yeah, right. That's totally. I speak Southeast Texan, so I don't really know what that was, but it sounds really smart.
I'm in southern Germany, and it's got its own dialect and draw, and it's hard to understand too. So anyway,
you're giving me a sense of belonging. I just felt like there was like all of a sudden a southern draw in southern Germany. I think that's what I heard you say.
Here we are.
Not so much. Well, I got to tell you. So you and I and Megan from our team had talked a while back. You and I spent some time together. Just at a crazy time in your life. There was like this intersection of you and me and a calling to something much different than where you were. And interestingly enough, at this exact moment, heading into the 4th of July week, there's like this intersection of your story and where so many leaders are that reflects where you were at the time when you and I met. And like I mentioned in the intro, there are so many people in our industry that are burnout and really on the verge of quitting or giving up. Like I mentioned, there's a 49-year-old CEO who called me last week and said, "Hey, I'm putting in my resignation. I'm done in 6 months. I can't take anymore." Right. And so I'm really excited for people to hear your journey and maybe pick up some courage, because I believe it's contagious from you and what you decided to do as you tell your story. So before we get any further, just give us some context, full intro on you, your name, what you're doing, where you're at currently, and then we'll jump into where you were when you and I met.
Yeah. Well, and hearing the word courageous associated to me is always tough, but I knew that what I've done is courageous because I'm sitting here in Munich. And, there's a lot of people think there's lots of Americans around here, but every time people run into me, they say how courageous it is that you from America came with no language skills, no friends, no job, and started fresh. It really, and I thought it was just normal to do this. But after the years started ticking by, I realized how challenging it was to make this huge change. And getting me here was so many things that happened in the past. And a lot of it was I was tired of behaviors that I was doing. I was tired of my job. I was, tired of kind of personal things going on in my life. It was burning me out at times. But I recognized that each one of those, I needed to make a change, get uncomfortable a little bit, and keep waking up and going for it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So just to give everybody a little context, and part of what's exciting to me is that you're from our industry. You're one of us, right? Maybe not in the same place that we're in, but you're certainly one of us. Fill everybody in on your real estate background and those types of things. Just kind of give us some context.
Yeah, I mean, right out of school, I got right into commercial real estate, and I primarily brokerage. I did office deals all across Kansas City and the country. And then when we met up in my job at the time, it was with a great development firm. It was a good spot for me, but we'll get into kind of what happened on the personal side that made me leap all the way overseas. That eventually got me into a great big corporate real estate job here in Germany, and it's an amazing experience and opportunity.
Cool. Okay, so just so that I can understand you, let's keep it in English. I mean, we've all agreed you're way smarter than me at this point. We don't have to show off any more of that. And all of the friends and workers and people that we work with, they all know me, so I can't pretend, right? But let's go to that. Let's fill us in. So you and I met maybe 5 years ago. Your development firm, had engaged us to help grow and scale the firm there. Obviously, our first step is digging into who are the people who are committed to leading the organization, and that's when you and I got to meet up. So that kind of sets the stage. Like, fill everybody in on what was going on with you and in your life in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, at that very moment, I had, up to this point, put together a great life and great career, had all the accoutrements to it, and I was happily married, no kids, but had a just wonderful life in Kansas City. And the marriage just fell apart all of a sudden, and it was a shock and hurt me, and it totally turned my life upside down. And it was at a time, I had built this career, but I was unsatisfied with it, and had just joined the firm that we came together at. And so all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the conference room with you and Megan, and I was given this packet to go fill out about leadership and career goals. And the next week, I went down to Florida for a business trip. And, being from Kansas, if we're by the water, we're gonna extend the stay and go hang out on the beach. And I figured let's go, hang out on the beach for the weekend And I was sitting there with the golf right in front of me and had your packet, and I started filling it out. And I came up with the question, if you could do anything, what would you do? Which was it's a great exercise, and most people fill something in and they dream. But I literally was at a point where I could, in theory, do anything. I wasn't, not rich, but had enough money and, didn't have kids, and recognized that I was still a young, able-bodied guy that had his whole life in front of him. And I knew I needed to make a change. So on the packet that you had me fill out, I wrote down, I want to, by, fall of 2020, move to Germany and get my MBA at a top university. Wrote that down. And from there, I started knocking out the steps. And then 8 months later, not even 8 months, it was probably 4 or 5 months, I was living in Germany, in Munich, going to the Technical University of Munich and getting my MBA.
That's amazing. Love that. So inside the 12 Strong program, for those of you who may not be aware, the very first thing that we introduce leaders to in that first degree of leadership in our leadership model is personal pathing. And what Tom's walking you through there is literally some of the first sheets that you dig into as you're really inventorying your life and why you do what you do. And man, that's powerful. It's great. So Tom, a lot of people have a really hard time creating a vision like that. And then a lot of people get excited about what they write down. And I would say a large majority of people end up leaving their vision board on the wall and never creating a journey out of it because it seems really hard. Walk us through 2 or 3 things that were really hard for you once you realized your vision, but weren't actually in Germany yet. So what were some of the things that were really hard for you to do in order to take some of these big steps? What were some of the big steps that were hard?
Well, I mean, we can't really go much further without me bringing up the most important decision I made in my life. And that was about 7 years prior to when that happened. And I decided to stop drinking. And yeah, getting sober and removing that out of my life was what was the biggest decision of my life. And, I struggled with alcohol. And when I made that decision, it was easy, and I was blessed. The grace of God, He came down, and it was a switch of a flip of a switch. And I feel so thankful that it was an easy task to do for me compared to others. But when that happened, all of a sudden my mind opened up, and I did start imagining what my life could be like. And it was because I wanted something more out of life. And I was burned out with dealing with a little bit of hangover every so often. And that's again, that getting tired of kind of the regular humdrum of life. And I had to make that change. And so from there, I started building a new life. And so that was quite a bit before my marriage ending, and I was starting to build a new life, but I was wanting more out of it.
I think I'm just going to respond to that. I don't interrupt you, but man, you are making such an important point that I really wasn't emotionally prepared for. I think our industry is so stressful. Design and construction industry is so stressful, and there is so much on men and women in our industry. I would say the large majority of people that we work with and that we know accidentally have a drinking problem, and they may not call themselves alcoholics, and I'm not calling them alcoholics, but I will tell you, when DeWayne Abels made a decision to stop drinking like you did, the same thing happened to me. The clarity of vision started coming back. And it's hard to explain that, but I so appreciate that comment, because I would recommend step 1, if you feel this way, if you're restless, if you want something more, if you know there's more out there and you're burnout and ready to do something different, first thing to do is drop the substance if you can and just allow your mind to settle. Would you agree?
Oh, again, I wasn't addicted, but I recognize it was holding me back. And it's something, I mean, it is mental to do it, but it's something that you can kind of calculate. You can get rid of it. And if you're trying to improve your life, I mean, alcohol is part of our culture. It's a wonderful thing. But it's really, if you want more out of life and you can remove it, it'll just be so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, step one is the substance abuse and just putting that on hold or stopping it. And then number two, this, even though it was several years later, is taking the time to sit down and evaluate, what do you really believe? What's your purpose in life? Right. And ultimately, why are you doing what you're doing? And do you need to change? And then the third step I hear you saying is to give yourself some time and maybe even a place where you can start to develop and define a vision, right, for what you want to do. Talk us through some of the other difficult steps. Those were some great ones there. What were some other difficult steps?
Yeah. I mean, the key to when you remove alcohol, when you have a big loss in your life, being a marriage or something else, or you're not being fulfilled with your job, you have to fill it with something else. And that is, I mean, for me, it was reading, and that's clearly, I was fortunate where it's a cheap and easy hobby for me. So the challenge is recognizing that when you are needing to, if you're wanting to take something out of your life that's not great for you, or you need to fill something that it's lost, you got to find something as soon as possible to fill it with. And it's okay. Again, for me, it was just reading. If it's going on walks, it's recognizing those things to just keep moving, getting out of bed, and hopefully with a smile on your face and staying active all day.
Yeah. So I totally agree. As I'm thinking about your story and sitting on the beach, I specifically remember you coming back, and we do a lot of this stuff in cohort environments, team environments. And so I literally remember you bringing your vision board back, building your vision board in the meeting, and then explaining what you were uncovering to us in the room. And you and I were having some conversations, like you were updating me a little bit on what was going on, but I had when you started talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's like, when you started talking about your vision, I'm like, okay, this is crazy awesome. It was like, we went from a really great meeting to like, this dude's going to change his life. How hard was it to be in that moment and start to explain to us, and then in turn other people in your life, like what you're going to do? Like, how'd that go?
Well, I just remember that meeting because I had written out this big vision, but I was also so angry, and I was angry at the moment, but I knew that I couldn't sit there and ruminate on it. And it was, again, finding something new in my life to challenge me and change. And so what that was is, it was writing down the list of all the steps that I needed to take to move to Germany. And the bureaucracy is big, all the paperwork, and then getting there, and then really the language. That we can get into the language discussion, but it's so overwhelming for somebody who never learned a second language, who's, now I'm in my 40s and can only, talk as a 5th or 6th grader, even though my mind is going as a skilled professional and I'd say a relatively knowledgeable person. So it's taking that vision, that anger, but not, and taking action with it.
Okay. You're making another great point.
Thank you.
Man, if you're listening to Tom's story right now, he's giving you a really big clue. All the energy that you're getting, which is probably a little negative from burnout or frustration or whatever it is that you're feeling, apply the energy to your decisions and your journey. that energy is to be applied somewhere. And a lot of us end up applying it either negatively towards ourselves or those people around us. And Tom's saying, take the energy and apply it to help create change. It's a great point, Tom. So so I'm going to reference your book a few times. So we're going to come back and we'll note your book. And I'd love for people to be able to read it. It's actually really interesting. But specifically there, you're really close to your family, man. Like clearly in your book, your family means a lot to you. I was in the room when you told your team, which was one level of wow. What was the level of wow, and what was their response with your family? I mean, what happened there?
Yeah, it's as I wrote, I won the parent lottery. I mean, you'll read it was far from a perfect childhood. It was blessed, but we grew up with financial struggles. But at the end of the day, I was blessed with two loving parents that supported me. And I look back now that I look back, they trusted me entirely, even as a older person, because the sobriety actually, that they knew I was thinking clearly when I was making these decisions. As I was telling my parents and my extended family about this exciting new chapter in my life, there was also guilt and for leaving them. Our family is very special. It's very large, but it's also very concentrated still in Kansas City. And I was deciding to move 5,000 miles away from people who loved me and supported me. So there was a lot of guilt about that. And it's a big family, and including friends also. The Catholic community that I grew up in of St. Anne's is so incredibly supportive. St. Anne's to Bishop Miege to Visitation. I felt guilty about what I felt like I was in some respects rejecting them. But anyway, I was moving there and I was determined to. What I decided to do to stay connected to so many people was to start writing. Being a reader, I read every single day. I have for decades now. But I'd never been much of a writer. I hated lit class in high school and grade school and didn't think I was a very good writer. But I knew that writing a summary, and I created a newsletter to stay in touch with my friends and family back in the States, was the best way for me to do it efficiently. And what that did was it was a perfect timing of where I was in my life, COVID happening in Europe, in this beautiful place, to discover an art form of writing that I was able to express myself. So that discovery in going for it from a literary perspective really was something that helped me stay connected with all my friends and family and put my life on a totally different path.
Yeah, man. I've met so many leaders who have aspirations or desires or maybe even a vision like you're talking about, and they literally don't execute on it because they're so concerned about how people will feel about them, or what if they'll lose people's respect, or they start comparing themselves, or there's a whole litany of things that just emotionally hold them back. I love hearing you say that you were able to tap into, a skill set and a craft you didn't even know was there in order to help manage some of that relationship and even, cope with it, I guess. So interesting.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I needed an outlet, from anywhere from the pain to explaining why I'm all of a sudden living in Germany, to this raging curiosity in life. So, and for me, writing was the best outlet for me. And a lot of people journal, and that's step one. But I decided to take the steps and to get it published.
Oh, and again, we're going to show that to you in a minute. It's a great book. I'd strongly recommend it. Do you think, this might be a little bit offhanded, but do you think that the discovery of writing and that outlet prevented you from rekindling the alcohol flame?
it helped me figure out, what I went through. Like I said earlier, it was relatively easy, but as I started writing about it, and at the very moment that I was editing it, for the first time, a friend of mine called me to get some help. Nobody had ever called me, and we started talking every week. And it was for the first time I was really reflecting back on what I went through, and it's social. As a social person, when you take alcohol out, and you want to stay social, which most people will want to. It takes, I don't want to scare people, but it takes years. And so the writing really helped me evaluate what I went through.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. So the one thing that I would really encourage you to do if you're listening to Tom's story and you find yourself in that place is Tom has given you yet another clue on how to reach your vision or to achieve your vision. A lot of men and women struggle with their situation because they can't articulate their story. People have a really hard time seeing what they're going through and understanding how what they're going through is actually preparing them or is a part of the journey. And I think, as I read through parts of your book, and, Megan is a way more intellectual person than me and probably way smarter. But as we were kind of comparing notes, I mean, that's what we were hearing is, man, Tom did a great job of really seeing and capturing what was going on with your story. And I'll tell you, man, this story is what is transferable. It's what helps other people. It's what empowers others. So that's a really powerful statement and recommendation there. Okay, so catch us up now. Like, you made this big move. You had the courage to get out there. Like, what are a couple of crazy things that happened when you got there? It's like, whoa, didn't expect that to happen. What are some of those things? I know there's some of that in Germany, but I mean, you probably know better than me.
Yeah. Let's hear the crazy things that happen here. I mean, here's the two biggest things that are a change. I've already mentioned the language, but the biggest challenge is how we get around. And it's amazing how I don't own a car. I haven't owned a car for over 5 years. And so that really opened my mind into a different way of living. And it took a while for me to accept that Kansas City and nearly all of America will never be Europe. It's just the cities are set up differently. But it was a major change, and I accepted it, that I'm not going to have a car. I'm going to get around on my 2 feet, a bike, and public transportation. And it has been it's an amazing experience to ride along with the general public and kind of be in transportation that way. So it's not crazy, but it was a huge change in lifestyle. Another thing that I experienced here, which is vastly different from the U.S., is the blue laws, which what we would call them back in the day in the U.S. is that you can't make noise generally on Sundays. No mowing the yard, no working on the house. Most businesses are not open. You can go to a restaurant, a beer garden, or a cafe at most, but no, you can't run errands. And many Germans bemoan this because if you have kids, it's just one less day to do errands, but it forces an entire, society to take a rest. And it's something that, is rooted back in the faith and the religious aspect. But it is so nice on a Sunday to walk through a very dense and busy city where it's generally quiet. There's no lawnmowers going and weed whackers and blowers. So it's a wonderful experience. And, it's one of the advantages to, I'd say, nice things that living here.
Yeah, man. So Tom, again, another gold nugget here, another major tip, another clue. People don't realize our need for rest, right? It's the consumerism that social media and our society pumps out, in America, that, Sundays is another day to get something done, another day to be productive. But I appreciate you acknowledging how hungry we are, but how ignored a Sunday rest or Sabbath really is, and how that can rejuvenate you. That's a really good point. I bet there's a lot of people who are watching this and go, man, I could get back to some roots on some Sabbath. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. So Tom, I want to transition a little bit to your return on investment, right? So as you're starting to think about who you're currently serving and the needs that you're helping them with, and you're thinking about, this continued vision that you're working towards, how are you serving people, given your platform? And then how do you think it's impacting people? What's the return on your effort on people?
Yeah. I mean, from a social perspective, I would say the book has been the biggest impact. With people reading the story, I don't read self-help books. The section that I talk about my stopping to drink period and going through that really morphed into a section that I wanted it to help people and let them understand what steps or what to expect. The biggest one is, if you're a huge sports fan, if you take out drinking, it's going to change how you want to watch sports. And I still feel guilty sometimes. I can't sit there and for 3 hours and watch a ball game. So anyway, what it is hopefully that part can help guide people. And it doesn't have to be you don't have to go to zero. For me, going to zero with booze was the best thing and the right choice. But others, it's just recognizing a relationship with it. The rest of the story is, the part about me discovering Germany and a new way of life. The blue laws, the walking around and commuting by bike. That's kind of the adventure aspect of it. And hopefully that's an inspiration that you don't need. I didn't have a lot of money. You don't need to be some rich American to run off to Germany, but you do need to have fortitude to learn the language. And the payoff for me, kind of from a professional perspective, is the determination to learn this language. And I've been at it for 5 years. I'm decent. The benefit, the return for that will be, I'd say, another 5 years. There is no natural talent with me learning the language, but within a total of 10 years, I will be proficient in German, not quite fluent, but able to do real estate in a huge market and connect with a totally different set of investors, developers, users. And I can communicate that back to the US and vice versa. And it'll be a skill that will be amazing. So that's from a career perspective, what I'm driving for here.
Love it, man. That's great. So Tom, knowing that there's a large majority of people who are hearing or watching this right now, heading into the 4th of July weekend, what would your advice be to someone who's maybe burnout, maybe frustrated, maybe they're in a life crisis like you had talked about? Like, what would your advice be as someone who's been there and has done something different?
Yeah, I mean, likely what is driving this is a desire for something different or more. Whatever you're doing is not, really bringing the fulfillment and true joy in your life. And so you got to recognize that there's probably something there that you want different. And the only way you can do that is to make a change. And yes, I was at a point where I went overseas, but it got me uncomfortable. It shocked me. And if you can do that, that will be fantastic. And I would say the other thing is, keep life simple. I mean, I basically have taken social media out. I have a LinkedIn, profile just so people know I'm actually at my job. But other than that, I don't do social media, and I read and go for walks. So.
Right. Well, it's good. I got to tell you, man, I love this story. I love your transparency, and I love the clues or the tips or the insight that you gave other leaders who are probably in our industry who are struggling with, where they are and what they're doing. You bring up a good point there, Tom, and it's something that means a lot to me. It's just because you're profiting in our industry doesn't mean you're prospering. And you do a really good job of articulating that the fulfillment piece is so important. The feeling of significance and the ability to understand the impact that you can have on the people around you using your platform is such a great point. I've been kind of inspired, man. I mean, you had clarity of purpose. All of a sudden you were seeing how you could use your platform to impact people. You chose a completely different place, but man, look at the potential that you have out of what you have chosen to do and how you invest in your life, man. I appreciate that. And really appreciate you sharing your story. So let's talk a little bit about the book, the name of the book, where people can get it, that whole deal. So introduce us to that.
Yeah. It's called Perfect Village, and you can get it on Amazon.com. And it took about 3.5 years to write. And I had an amazing team. I self-published it. It would have taken years to get it published in a traditional way, but it was so important for me to get it written and get it out there. So I just hired the right people, and it was just, it's been so wonderful to share it with people and get the responses back.
I got to tell you, you and I talked about this. I didn't know what to expect, but man, when I got it, when it hit the doorstep at the house, I talk a whole lot about how people in our industry can directly impact their community. And your title, The Perfect Village, just captured me on that. And I think it's a really interesting personal leadership journey that if you're looking for some courage and some inspiration and you're looking to do something different, man, this book is a great example of what you can do when you decide to change your situation. So Tom, we're going to add a link to the PioneerCast where people can access it and get it. I'd strongly recommend it. There's a lot of different parts of this book, but the interesting thing that you're doing in the first part of this book is just really helping people understand how rooted you are in your family. And the way that I took that was it took a lot of courage to leave those roots and go replant in a different place. And I think people will really find that interesting. And then obviously there's a lot of things weaved in here around personal pathing and Germany and what you're doing in real estate. So I think it'd be a great read for somebody who's looking for some courage. Tom, thank you, man. I'm excited to hear how your journey continues on. I love the fact that the vision and the destination isn't the goal. You're just soaking in every moment of the journey and all the milestones. So we'll be checking back with you, man, and seeing how you're doing.
DeWayne, thanks so much for the opportunity. It's been fun talking. So I appreciate it.
You bet. Lead on, brother. The world needs you.